The first thing everyone learns on Virex Station is this: don't stare at the alien warriors. The second thing they learn is harder: don't underestimate them. I broke both rules the moment Captain Seralith walked into Bay 7 with half her chest armor cracked open and sparks still dying along the edges. "I need repairs," she said calmly, as if she hadn't just survived a boarding action that left 3 decks scorched and 1 pirate cruiser drifting in pieces outside the viewport. I swallowed and nodded. "Why yes, Captain. Put it on the rack." She was tall, nearly 2 meters, with slate blue skin marked by faint silver patterns that shifted when she moved. Her species, the Aurelian Guard, were known across the coalition as living weapons. Disciplined, cold, terrifyingly efficient. And she was standing in my maintenance bay, trusting me with her armor. As a civilian engineer, my job was simple: fix things, don't ask questions, and definitely don't make eye contact longer than necessary. I guided her toward the magnetic platform and activated the clamps that held her armor in place while she stepped out of it piece by piece. The breastplate was the worst hit. A plasma blade had scored a deep groove across it, warping the internal energy lattice. "Looks rough," I muttered, more to myself than her. "It protected what mattered," Seralith replied. I powered up my tools and began carefully realigning the damaged segments. Up close, the armor was a masterpiece: adaptive alloys, neural responsive plating, and ceremonial etchings that told the history of her rank. I focused on my work. I always did. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the soft hum of my welder. I was so absorbed that I barely noticed when Seralith leaned closer, watching my hands move. "You are very precise," she said. "Comes with the job," I replied. Then she smiled. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Her eyes softened, and in a tone far quieter than before, she said, "Don't stop." My hands froze. Heat rushed to my face. I immediately pulled back, heart pounding. Captain, if I'm doing something wrong." She blinked, clearly confused. "Wrong? No. Why would you stop?" I stared at her, then at the armor, then back at her face. Slowly, realization dawned. "You meant the repairs?" "Yes," she said, tilting her head. "Is that unusual?" I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding and laughed nervously. "Just a misunderstanding. Human thing." Her brow furrowed. "Explain." I shook my head. "Maybe later." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. Continue." As I worked, I became aware of how intently she was watching not my face, but my hands. Every movement, every adjustment. "Most engineers rush," she said. "They fear my presence." "Well," I said, carefully rethreading a conduit, "rushing breaks things. And you're not a thing." Her eyes flicked to my face. "You speak to me as an equal." "I speak to everyone that way." That seemed to surprise her. Over the next few hours, she stayed, asking questions about the tools, the station, Earth. I answered as best I could, and slowly, the tension between us eased. When I finally finished, the armor gleamed like new. "There," I said, stepping back. "Good as it gets." She stepped into the armor, the plates sealing seamlessly around her body. She flexed once, twice, then turned to me. "You have restored more than my armor," she said. I frowned. "I just fixed what was broken." Seralith stepped closer. Among my people, repairing a warrior's armor is an act of trust. To do so with care is an act of respect. I didn't know that. You do now. She left the bay shortly after, but she returned the next day. And the next. Sometimes her armor needed minor adjustments. Sometimes it didn't need repairs at all. She just stood there, watching me work on other equipment, asking questions about humans, about why we smiled, why we laughed in tense situations, why we fixed things instead of replacing them. You rebuild what is damaged, she said once. We replace what fails. Seems lonely, I replied. Her gaze lingered on me longer than usual. Yes. It is. Weeks passed. Word spread that Captain Seralith favored Bay 7. Other crew members whispered, speculated. I ignored them. One cycle, after a brutal engagement that left the station shaken, she arrived without her helmet. There was a faint bruise along her temple. Sit, I said without thinking. She did. I treated the injury gently, my hand steady. When I finished, she caught my wrist, not hard, just enough to stop me. Why do you care? She asked quietly. I hesitated. Because someone should. Her grip tightened slightly. You are unlike any human I have met. Low bar, I joked weakly. She didn't smile this time. Instead, she said, in Aurelian tradition, choosing a bond is rare. Dangerous. I felt my pulse spike. Bond. When a warrior entrusts another with their armor, their wounds, and their weakness, it is not done lightly. I met her gaze. Seralith, if this is about the repairs. It is about what they represent, she said. You saw me not as a weapon, but as a person. Silence filled the bay. Finally, I said, I don't know how Aurelian bonds work. She released my wrist. They begin with understanding. She smiled again, soft, genuine. And that was when I finally understood. When she'd said don't stop, she hadn't meant the tools in my hands. She meant the care, the patience, the way I treated her like someone worth fixing. From that day on, Bay 7 wasn't just a repair station. It was where two very different beings began rebuilding something far more important than armor. Together.